Hi guys, in this video we're going to be making the Sanderson sisters, something that you guys had requested quite a bit, and it was in the Facebook Live. So in this part we're going to do the faces, and I'm going to show you how to use the mold, the same mold, the Abby face mold that I have, to create 3 different faces. Hopefully you'll enjoy this one. I realise not all of you have the mold, but those of you that did had requested more videos on how to use the molds for different things. So this one was a Facebook Live. You can catch the full version still over on my Facebook page, So It's Fancy Cakes, as well, if you still want to watch that. So we're going to use the Saracino modelling paste for this one. I'm just going to use the pale kind of pasty colour, which I think is called Rose Beige. The moulds I'm going to use, because I've got them in all different sizes, I'm going to use the largest one, which is called the Abby mould, which has got the eye indentations as well. You'll see you might not recognise the actual bodies yet, but you will recognise the heads if you've got my moulds. The bodies are due out in the next couple of weeks. Fingers crossed they arrive soon. So I wanted to show you those. So there are other videos on using the moulds in more detail, but you just want to rub them in a bit of corn flour to stop the paste sticking. And I'm going to just smooth off all my paste. You can get them out of the moulds a couple of different ways. So you can either have tons of extra paste at the back. You can push it into your mould. You need to push it in really, really firmly though, guys, because it's got such a small nose and mouth area that if you don't press firmly, they won't come out. You won't see them properly when you remove the head. So push your finger like really back into the back of that, or a balling tool, and then just pop it out. So that's my preferred way, but obviously you get a bit of a line around there, and I will have to cut off this back section. This is fine if you put in hair on and you're going to cover the back of the head. That's absolutely fine. The other way of doing it, guys, is to be a little bit more precise, put closer to the right amount of weight of paste in here. Now, I'll put links in the corner of the videos to the other face mold videos where I've got in like the quantities and a bit more detail about using the mold. But you can press it in, again, really firmly. So like I say, you can use a balling tool because sometimes it sticks to your fingers. Create a little hollow, and you can put in a small polystyrene ball. Now, I think I've got a 2 centimeter one here, but you could even go a little bit smaller because actually when I pull this out, the head's a little bit bigger than I wanted it to be. The polystyrene can help you get it back out of the mold, and also it can help when you add the head to the body at a later stage. It can help just keep it on the skewer that we're going to attach them together with a little bit firmer. But you don't have to add a polystyrene ball, guys. It's optional. So we're going to round it off at the back of the head rather than it be flat this time. And I've just printed off some images of these ladies as well that we're going to use. They're not going to look exactly like them, but you know, they'll have certain characteristics like the lips to one side. She's got a slightly thinner face. We've got the teeth. So we'll try and make some differences. So when these come out of the mold, they all should look pretty much the same. So the other one that I've put in, I'm just going to give 10 minutes to firm up. So let's squeeze this one down a little bit. And this is where I forget the name of all the different characters. Even though I've said the name so many times in the Facebook Lives, guys, I forget the Sarah, Winnie, and I've forgotten what the third one is called. So it's really bad of me. I should know by now. So once the other one has had 10 minutes to firm up, I'm going to put a skewer into the back of the head, and we're just going to pull that out carefully with the skewer, being careful not to push like the front of the mold because that will squash the nose and the mouth. So you'll see there's 2 different ways to get it out. If you're pulling it out with all the excess from the back, like I did on the first one, you can pull it out straight away. It depends what kind of paste you're using and stuff as well, guys, as to how long you need to put it in the mold and how easy it comes out or squashes. But modelling paste is definitely better than fondant for getting them out. So you see now one looks like it's got a fatter head, one looks like it's got a slightly slimmer head, because that second one we're just squeezing in at the sides to make it a little bit longer and thinner. The only thing is it does bring my eyes closer to the edge of the face. Okay, so the first one you see, we kind of squashed it so her face is a little bit shorter. This one we're stretching it out a little bit. So I've pressed the third one in a bit more kind of on her cheeks to make her cheekbones kind of stick out a little bit more. And I'm just going under that with the sort of rubber-ended modelling tool. What I'll do, guys, is I'll put links below this video to all the different modelling tools that I've used and to the face modelling things. And let's start with the sort of shorter, fatter face that we've got. And we're opening up the mouth using a craft knife. And we're going to try and pull the lip to one side. But I think what we'll do is get some teeth in first. So we're going to take a really small piece of white and we're going to push that into the mouth. Try to make it pointy at both ends of that piece of white. Push it fairly deep in there, but not so deep that it disappears to like the back of the throat. Then we're going to push the lip up a little bit from the bottom, just sort of reshaping it up to that top corner. And then we want to try and make sure at the other side it looks like it's kind of pulled to one side a bit. Now, guys, if you do want a bit more detail on this one, do go back and check the Facebook Live out. It is available still to watch at any time on my Facebook page. if you go to Zoe's Fancy Cakes, at the top of the page, there should be a little tab that says live, and in there you can find all the old Facebook Lives that we've done. Okay, so the second face, we're also going to open up the mouth, and we're also going to put some teeth in. Just carefully pushing them right back, tucking them tight into the corners. And I'm just pushing the lip kind of up and in a little bit at each side on the bottom lip. So I was going to just leave it like this. We've kind of sort of fattened the bottom lip a tiny bit. But then I couldn't decide if we actually needed separate little teeth. So I've rolled an extra piece that's just going to sit in there for Winnie's teeth that kind of stick out a little bit there like that. I'm just going to, on the third face, we're going to leave the mouth closed. Just going to push in a little bit deeper at the corner of the mouth. If you get any harsh lines that you don't like, just try and smooth them out a little bit with a modelling tool. Also, the seam that you kind of get on the back of the head, you can try and rub that out a little bit. This is called a cat tongue tool, I think, this one. I'll put links below for you guys. So let's give them a bit of blusher. So I'm using a round, fluffy brush, and we're just going to put on some edible colour powder. So I'm using some from my Petal palettes, which look like makeup palettes, but they are edible powder. But you can use loose little edible dusts as well. Let's put some blusher on all of them. It usually looks quite bright at this stage because they've got no makeup, no hair. Once we do more to them, this pink on the cheeks won't look as bright. So once they've all got pink cheeks, let's try and make a bit of space for the eyes. So there are eye marks on this particular mould, but what I'm going to do on this one is I'm taking my Dresden tool and I'm just pressing in and kind of creating like a little semicircle, so the flat edge is at the bottom towards the cheek. And you can see the top edge, the indentation even, from the existing eye mark. It now starts to look like just a crease in the eyelid, so we're going to leave that there. And then the second one, we're just going to open these a bit more so it opens to the full shape of the eye indentation or eye mark that's already on the mould. So you can just press in, you can use a balling tool or your Dresden tool, and you're going to try and press it in to as close as you can to the mark of the edge of the line. Now, if you don't want to do this, you can just paint the eye marks on in white, but it takes a few coats, it takes a little bit of time to dry. You can see me do it in different ways on the different face videos that I've got as well on here. If you're wanting to be able to get it done quicker in one go, you can just add white paste into the eyes, but it sticks out a lot, it protrudes from the face if we don't press like the eye markings in a bit further. Hopefully this will make sense. You'll see when we put the whites in the eyes that it will look like it's gone nicely in there when we do it. Okay, so lips, you can colour them in. You can either use like a red edible pen or you can use edible powder. So this one I had to go with the pen. This one's actually the pink pen. It's quite a deep pink, so it still looks red. And you'll see the picture that I'm using for reference is actually, it's a picture of some Disney dolls. So we're not aiming to get ours to look the same as, but it just helps us look at like the features a little bit. Nothing I make ever really looks like what it's meant to, but it's fine. So if you don't want to use an edible pen, you can use the powders, but you're going to mix them with a dipping solution or rejuvenator or clear alcohol because that's going to make it a nice paint consistency. And then very carefully paint onto the lips. So just steady yourself by resting on your other hand. So go for a really nice thin brush. I'm using one of the Silvia Mancini brushes here, but any really nice fine pointy one will do. So guys, I've sped up the painting part a little bit quicker than what it was in real life. Otherwise, you'd be watching me for a while. Like I say, if you want to watch the live version still, you can watch it in real time. But I've sped this up a little bit, just so that hopefully you're a little bit less bored watching it. So let's get colour on all their lips. You can darken them a bit if you want. You can shade them. If you're going to do some shading, try and darken it just at sort of the edges of the lips, and then you can go a bit redder in the middle. Okay, so let's give them some eyeshadow. So I've got a slightly different brush again. It almost is the shape of my actual eyeshadow brush that I have, but in miniature version. So we're just going to add some light brown. I've gone up the side of the nose a little bit to enhance the nose a bit more, but you don't have to. And then a slightly darker brown sort of on the eyelid area. You can darken the cheeks as well if you want. Or anywhere that you want to look sort of a bit darker and more shaded, you can add a bit of colour to. So let's give all three of them a bit of eyeshadow. And you can put a different colour eyeshadow on each one if you want. So eyeshadow's now on. Let's give them some beauty spots. I think just 2 of them have beauty spots, if I remember correctly. That's what it looks like on my picture that I'm using for reference. Okay, so let's fill those eye sockets now with bits of white. So you're just going to have to try and shape them a little bit to the shape of each eye hole that you made. So this one's kind of like a semicircle-ish shape that we're going to fill. Just be careful pushing it in there. You might not need any water or edible glue to attach it in. If it keeps dropping out, then you can, by all means, just put some water or edible glue in there to hold it in place. So the second one's going to be more like lemon-shaped pieces that we're putting in there to fill in those eye sockets. And then we're going to do the same for the third face as well. So when the eyes are in, we're going to put on some eyebrows. Again, different ways of doing it. You can either do it in a pen or you can paint it on using the powders mixed into a paint, or we can even stick them on in modelling paste as well. So this one we're going to try a black pen for. Okay, the second one, let's try painting them on. You will find you can get finer lines if you paint, but it just depends how comfortable you are painting. Some people prefer pens. Pens is usually easier, but I do get more detail with the brush. Okay, so let's mix some colour for the eyebrows for Winnie. So I've got some orange colour here. I'm just going to mix a bit of brown in with that actually. And I'm still using modelling paste for this, guys, just because it's a little bit easier than using fondant. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of water where I want the eyebrows to sit for this one. I'm going to roll some tiny, tiny pieces for the eyebrows. Just make sure they've got a nice thin point on one end, and that thin pointy end is going to go to the outer edge of the face. Oh, she looks evil like that. Let's bend the outer edge downwards. Some nice arched brows. So next, let's paint on some eyelashes. So again, we can paint them on or we can stick them on. I went a little bit overboard with these and went quite thick with the sort of eyeliner and eyelashes on these ladies. Usually they get thicker and thicker where I go wrong, and then I try and correct it on the other one, and yeah, they just end up massive. So I put a thick line on, and then I tried to add some individual lashes. I'll be honest, it looked nicer when I just had the thick line rather than when I added the lashes, but I didn't get them on very neatly. And we're just going to do the same for all of them. I think the second and third one, excuse me knocking the camera, the second and third one, I didn't bother with the individual lashes. I just decided it was neater to keep them a bit plainer looking, although probably still too thick. So on the third one, I think she's called Sarah, I think. You guys can tell me the names if I've got it wrong. I just watched the film as well only the other day and I still can't remember the names. We're going to put them on in paste on this third one. So I've got some black modelling paste and I've rolled it really nice and thin. So it's got a nice point on one end, and we're going to try and get it along the bottom edge of the eye with the pointy end towards like the inside corner of the eye. And we'll cut it off at that outer edge. So these are going to make our eyes quite kind of heavy and dark looking as well. We'll do the same for the top eyelash as well. So nice and thin on that inner corner, and it gets thicker as we come up and sort of further towards the outer edge. And just trim it off at a bit of an angle there, like so. And guys, if you want to use these face molds for different faces, I do have other videos as well. I'll put links up on the screen now for you to find the other ones. But there we go. So they all look slightly different. I mean, they still are similar as well because it is the same mold, but they've got some differences. So let's paint on some eyes. I'm just using some blue edible powder. Again, mixed with a clear alcohol or dipping solution is fine. You can mix it with water, but it tends to go a little bit lumpy and bumpy. You'll get a smoother paint if you use clear alcohol, dipping solution, or rejuvenated spirit. It does kind of dry and evaporate, so it dries quite quick. We're just going to put a bit of a darker blue around the outer edge. Now, I like these ones without pupils, but yeah, I couldn't decide whether to give them pupils or not. In the end, they got them. So let's do the same now for the other faces. We'll just change the colours and maybe have them looking in slightly different directions. And if you go too dark, guys, you can take the colour back out. If you just use a slightly damp brush and just rub it over what you've done, you'll see it will just bring the colour back out a little bit, which is what I've done on the brown eyes here. So the third one, I kind of wish I'd painted her eyes looking in a different direction. I think I've made her look a little bit like a frog. Yeah, she looks a bit like a frog. On mine anyway, that is. Okay, so we're going to add a tiny black pupil. I've done this with modelling paste, so a small ball of black modelling paste, and we're just going to drop that into each eye. Make sure you press it down firmly. Also, it's going to flatten it, because if we don't flatten it, they're going to stick out a lot from the side. Let's add a tiny dot of white. I'm using just white modelling paste, rolled really small. You can paint it in with a white paint or even a white pen, but the white paint and pen can sometimes absorb the other colour from the eye. And we'll do the same for the other sets of eyes. So we're going to make them each a body now. I'm going to make one in a mould, and then I'll make one that's not in a mould as well to quickly show you how you can do it without. I used the mould in the Facebook Live because it's my new mould that's going to be out very, very soon, hopefully for the beginning of November, and we're in 2022 at the moment. So I wanted to kind of show you it because then you get a sneak peek, but also I will show you it without the mould as well. So the new mould, this particular one, fits with the Abby face. I'm also going to have a new body mould that goes with the Becca face, which is the medium-sized face. And you guys might already know we've got one for the Gemma face and body already. So same as before, just cornflour mould. You're going to push your paste in nice and firmly. You can add a wooden skewer into it to help remove it. Also, they're not going to be orange in colour, guys, when the actual moulds arrive. And then you're just going to carefully pull it out. You can give it 10 minutes to firm up. You don't have to pull it out immediately like what I did. I don't need that little bottom bit there, so let's trim that off. And you can move the body around so it's got a bit more kind of natural movement to it. So you can arch the bottom of the back and tilt the neck slightly further forward. And then you can just put the skewer back through there. I'm going to build these on some polystyrene for the time being. In this particular video, because it was a Facebook Live, I only really got time to do bodies and heads, and we need to put those together, but they need a bit of time to be firming up before we add the hair to them as well. So we did those in the following week's Facebook Live. So that video will be available for you guys to watch on here on YouTube very soon. But also it's actually available now to watch on the Zoe's Fancy Cakes Facebook page. So you can stick the heads on, you can just push them onto that skewer. Just make sure you've got a bit of water or even edible glue between the neck and the head. So if you're doing it without a mould, you're just going to pinch a little bit into the top, which will be our neck. Now, I'm not spending ages making these really sort of nice. I know that sounds awful. We're not doing them too shapely, basically, because I'm going to be adding clothes over the top, so I don't need to actually worry about sort of getting the exact shape of the bust and the cleavage in on these particular ones. But we've cut off the back so the back is flat. We've sloped the bit sort of from just down the neck, and then I've pulled it in a little bit at the waist. Now, I do have quite a few different doll cake videos here on YouTube as well, guys, that you can check out, and you'll be able to see me doing this kind of shape and even a little bit more detail of this kind of shape many times in those doll cake videos, so it might be worth checking out those as well if you are planning on doing some doll cakes, which is what I plan on turning these into. Okay, so this one's a little bit wider. I've trimmed off the bottom. Just put a little mark in just there and across here for the collarbones. And then let's push the skewer through. So I'm just holding them up in polystyrene. They will be removed from this polystyrene. Let's get the head pushed onto that. She's a little bit chunky, I think, for what I want. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off at the back. And then let's just smooth that out a little bit with the finger. Again, I'm not too worried if it's not perfectly smooth because her clothes are going to cover this. And we're not going to see the little imperfections. Okay. So the third one I'll just do in exactly the same way. I didn't do it on camera, I'm afraid, guys, but it's just the same as these two. They need to set. So I want the head to set nice and firm on the body. Otherwise, when I add hair, there's a chance the neck will sink. So that's important when you are doing these, guys. Okay, so thanks for watching this part, guys. Hopefully you'll be able to join me for some of the Facebook Lives when I make them into the doll cake. And you can catch the hair for these guys coming in the next few days. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and more.